This week, The Last of Us gives viewers an episode exploring Ellie's backstory. If they wanted to be even more accurate, they should have charged an extra $14.99 for this episode. We have all the details you missed in episode 7 of The Last of Us. The latest episode of the new hit HBO series is very much based on a chapter of the hit game. Actually, that's been a pretty constant thing about this incredibly accurate show. However, if you played the PS3 game when it first came out and never picked it up again, this episode might be a little unfamiliar. That's because it wasn't in the game originally, but was added later as downloadable content. The DLC was titled The Last of Us Left Behind. No, it wasn't based on the popular Christian post-apocalyptic book and film series, but instead told the same story as this week's episode. Being a video game, it's far more extended, with Ellie venturing out of the house to find supplies for an injured Joel. It also involves several new minigames that allowed you to enjoy the thrill of being alone in a 20-year-old abandoned mall. While the DLC makes up the bulk of this week's episode, it also borrows elements from the limited comic book series American Dreams, also written by Druckmann. In that comic, we see how Reilly and Ellie first met the Fireflies and how Reilly came to join them. The show changes this around a bit. In the comic, Marlene gave Ellie her switchblade, while in the show, Ellie has never met Marlene before Reilly joined her. Both show and game retain the plot point that Marlene knew Ellie's mother, and it was a promise to her that kept Ellie from being allowed in the Fireflies. It's great that the show chose to devote an entire episode to this DLC content, and we didn't even have to pay extra.
No way! I love these!
A few episodes ago, we covered the fictional in-universe comic book series Savage Starlight, but in case you missed it, here is a primer. The original PlayStation 3 classic featured an in-game collectible in the form of a series of comics Joel and Ellie could find strewn about. Comprising 14 issues, Savage Starlight tells the story of Dr. Daniela Starr, who has a totally real name that humans have. A few hundred years from now, Dr. Starr will develop a faster-than-light engine. When her team tests it, it attracts the attention of an evil alien race known as the Travelers. They invade Earth and lay waste to humanity. Dr. Starr escapes and has a series of near-death adventures while trying to save humanity. If this series sounds like it would be rad, well, you're not wrong. It's just too bad that all we get of this epic tale is a series of comic covers and some short blurbs on each issue. Well, this week we get our very first look at the inside of an issue of Savage Starlight, complete with original artwork. Also, thanks to the show's incredible accuracy to the game, we even know what issue she is reading. Ellie is enjoying Savage Starlight issue 8, Negan Trophy. The blurb on the back of the issue in the game gives us more insight into what is going on. It reads, "With Captain Ryan's leadership and Daniela's technological expertise, the raids of the Last Watch have become ever more daring. As a scientist, can she bear to use her gifts for destruction?" The brown-haired woman is Dr. Starr, who has now joined a clandestine resistance movement titled the Last Watch. The man next to her with a full mouth of teeth is Captain Ryan. Ryan is a longtime ally of Daniela's after the pair were the sole survivors of an early expedition to stop the Travelers. In the pages, it looks like they are in the middle of one of these daring raids. However, things seem to be going wrong when the pair failed to find what they are looking for. Judging by Dr. Starr's reaction, it was some kind of ruse by the Travelers. You may have noticed some parallels between Dr. Starr and Ellie's stories. That's because each issue corresponds to a specific level, and their blurbs would often foreshadow events in the story. Just replace Dr. Starr and Captain Ryan with Ellie and Joel, the Last Watch with the Fireflies, and the Travelers with Fedra and the Fungus. By the way, I already claimed Fedra and the Fungus as my next band name, so everybody else back off.
I'm sorry, are you telling me not to beat people up?
This episode also gave us further insight into Ellie's pre-Joel life and even what kind of movie she likes. That's if she has ever actually seen a movie before, or if her first film was The Goodbye Girl. If so, well, there are worse places to start. When we see how Ellie lives back at Fedra School, we also see several posters and decorations on her wall. There are two prominently displayed film posters. The first is for the Val Kilmer starring thriller Red Planet. This makes sense for Ellie, who has already expressed an interest in the history of space travel. It also makes me sad to think that Ellie's culture ended in 2003, which means The Martian was never made. I guess that would make Mission to Mars the best movie about our planetary neighbor. What a terrible parallel universe she lives in. The other poster on her wall is for the 1987 comedy adventure Inner Space. Starring Dennis Quaid and Martin Short, this sci-fi follows Quaid's scientist, who is shrunk down and injected into Short's hypochondriac. It could serve as a bit of a cheeky reference to Ellie's own internal protection from the cordyceps fungus. Whatever the meta reason, the point is clear. Ellie is a die-hard sci-fi fan. Just when I thought I couldn't identify with her more. It's debatable if Ellie has even had the chance to see these movies, or if she just found the posters somewhere. Hey, that brings up a great point about the series as a whole. Ellie lives in a far different world from our own 2023, in more ways than one. While we live in an age where any movie, show, comic, or even video game is at our fingertips at any moment. For example, if I made a joke right here about, let's say, Deep Blue Sea, well, our editor can just grab that clip from his personal Blu-ray or off YouTube, and just like that, here is Samuel L. Jackson being eaten by a cartoon shark while indoors. Well, Ellie and the other kids of this alternate 2023 don't have that luxury. While Reilly has a poster for Mortal Kombat 2 on her wall, it takes practically a miracle for her to end up playing it with her best friend. Tommy's Community has a family movie night with a 1977 romantic comedy, perhaps because it's one of the only working movies they have. The world of The Last of Us lends realism to its world by showing a new generation that yearns for the access to pop culture that their parents had. Many works could be lost to the world forever, permanently buried under rubble or burned in apocalyptic fire. I guess what I'm trying to say is there is a real market in the post-apocalypse for people who just travel around, risking their lives for DVD copies of Die Hard. Hey, speaking of Mortal Kombat, there was a moment early in episode 3 when Joel and Ellie are on the road and they stop in at an abandoned store to look for supplies. Ellie marvels at the non-functioning Mortal Kombat 2 arcade cabinet. She even talks about Melina and her fearsome teeth. While we learn in this episode how she came to know about the adopted daughter of Shao Kahn. It turns out Reilly showed her the game complete with Melina's man-eating fatality. It makes her excited in episode 3 and a little sad. It also adds some more meaning to the encounter she has with the trapped infected in that same store. She uses her switchblade to cut and then dispatch the zombie. When she and Reilly are attacked by that zombie that eventually bites them, Ellie uses the knife to defend her and stop the attack. She stabs the zombie in the head, but just a little too late to save her friend. Was she reliving this moment in the abandoned store, trying to have some kind of catharsis? I can't give a definitive answer because I'm not a psychologist.
I saw this, not before the outbreak.
You did? Does he totally gut her by the end?
Savage Starlight isn't the only thing the show gets right. While we get a lot of shots of the fabulous mall that the production put together, we do get a lingering moment on a specific movie poster. The poster for Dawn of the Wolf 2. Once again, the set designers have done a great job because this is an exact recreation of a poster from the video game. In the PlayStation game, the two travelers come across a billboard for the Supernatural sequel. Joel even remarks that he saw the movie just before the world went to hell. He was obviously dragged to see it by his daughter, a fact that he avoids telling Ellie as this moment comes earlier in the game. The change from the outbreak occurring in 2013 to 2003 also changes the context of this film slightly. The original intent was a spoof on the then ongoing Twilight franchise. I guess alternate 2003 got to the supernatural teen drama trend much sooner. Maybe it was good the world ended before Dawn of the Wolf Part 3, Rise of the Blood Moon. We are nearing the end of season 1 and there is still so much left for the series to do. However, the series has rightly chosen to focus on the smaller stories over the bigger action of its video game counterpart. It's also now twice devoted a whole episode to a same-sex romance. And by how well audiences are receiving the show, it's obvious that representation truly does matter. The series returns next week, but with only 2 episodes left, things are bound to heat up.